coached three of the most celebrated women's basketball players in the world basketball history, I'd say so, in Sue Bird, Tina Charles, and Chamique Holdsworth. He's currently the athletic director at Christ the King Regional High School in New York. Welcome, Coach Bob. I'll also like to welcome Raspreet Sidhu, who is a current player and former captain of the Indian women's basketball team and is currently an NBA expert panelist in the NBA Around the Hoop show. She has been representing India since 15 years and has represented India in the Asian Games 2010, 14, and 18, and the Commonwealth Games in 2018. I'd also like to welcome Dr. Amrish Tony, who is the Director of Sports and Physical Education at Shivnadar University. He has a PhD in Physical Education and Sports Science and has 14 plus years of experience in competitive swimming and judo. Welcome, everybody. Raspreet and I will be co-hosting this session, Coach Bob. We will be asking you questions alternatively, and we'll also present the slide which you have shared later on. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes, Pradyut, you are audible.
Okay. Raspreet, would you like to start with the first question?
Yes. Just wanted a confirmation. I think we'll just.
I'm not getting you. There you go. I think you're back now.
Hello?
Yes,
Coach Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, Raspreet, we can hear you.
Raspreet, I can hear you. You're breaking up a little bit, but that's okay.
Right. So just to start with the first question, I would like to know, and I'm sure all the audience would like to know, that what does it take for a coach to hold his or her players to high standards?
Okay. Well, first, Shubh Sandhya coaches, good evening, and thank you for this privilege, this honor. When you've got players, women, men, it's the same. You have to set goals and you have to set standards, and you've got to hold those players to those standards. Whether it's academics, whether it's athletics, you've got to hold them to the standards you set. And sometimes the standards are not always realistic, but you've got to push them to go beyond what they're capable of. And when you can achieve that, they're going to do very well both in sports and in life.
Right. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Next question from me, Coach. You've coached Christ the King, of course, is one of the most celebrated high school basketball programs in the US. Could you tell me how you build this into a perennial powerhouse? 3 of your players have been selected first overall in the WNBA draft, and all 3 of them are Olympic gold medalists. What does it take to build such a program?
Well, I've definitely been out of my mind because this has been 30 plus years of coaching. It's not about the stars. The gold medalists are wonderful, and the Olympics and the first round picks. We've had 4 first round picks, 3 number ones. The key is the other young ladies. You've got to take care of everybody. Everybody doesn't get treated the same, but everybody gets treated fairly. And what I mean by that is the players who are maybe not as skilled, their development is of paramount importance for your team's success. The stars, the better players, they're always going to be the better players. They're always going to be those players that are your best players. That's great. What are you doing with number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Those are the kids that are going to win you games, going to win you championships. And those are the players that you've got to build on, both physically, improving skill-wise, and confidence-wise. Because if they're not, and you lose them, then you really tend to not have the ability to be successful. So it's really a group effort. I've been very blessed. I've had some great assistant coaches, um, a variety of different people. And my job is to facilitate. I set everything up and I try to make sure that it runs. My assistant coaches have maybe a little more hands-on or a little more contact with the players, but I've got to trust them. We've all got to trust each other. And when that trust works, and it has worked for a number of years now, we've been very, very successful.
Thank you.
Yes, coach. I mean, you know, that's so important for you to share these insights with us and all the coaches and aspirant basketballers who've joined the session. And just to, moving on, you've been coaching, as you rightly mentioned, for more than 30 years. So could you just tell us a little about how the basketball became so popular in the United States? It is one of the most popular sport in the country. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with the grassroots level. So would you just like to tell us a little bit about basketball at grassroots in the US?
The key, Raspreet, is to really make sure that the younger players get developed at 6, 7, 8 years old. They're starting, and no, they've got no skill. Maybe they've got a little athletic ability. We're watching girls that are 9, 10, 11 years old as they start to play, and we really try to keep an eye on those players, helping. We go out, we do clinics, we work with a lot of the youth groups in the area and around New York City, trying to help those coaches. Every coach does a great job. I'm a firm believer in that. Some coaches are not great with younger kids, and I give them a ton of credit. I teach high school chemistry. I don't know how teachers who teach first and second grade primary school, I don't know how they do it, because I think they deserve to be paid a whole lot more. Same thing with coaching younger kids. It takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of time, but the rewards are incredible, because now you see them grow up into such fine young men and women, and it's a very privileged profession that we're all in. To develop them, you build every day a little bit more. I've been coaching girls now for the last 30 years. I still run boys camps in the summer. It's just a great opportunity for me, but it's been a great trip. I love coaching girls. I love coaching women. The one thing I will share with all the coaches here, if you're coaching young women, they never forget. Boys shake things off. You can yell at them and they'll shake it off. Girls will remember that day that you yelled at them, and they will hold on to that forever. They do not forget. You know that.
I can relate to it 100%. And yeah, thank you so much.
Coach, you've been coaching for more than 2 decades. The last book I read on Pat Summit, she had to steal jerseys off the men's locker room because the colleges where she was coaching were not funding the athletics program for the women's team. How have you seen women's basketball grow in terms of recent times for the WNBA? There have been salary hikes as well as certain rights for women. We've heard Coach Muffet McGraw recently talk about how it's still not the norm. And how have you seen the transition in these last 30 years in terms of the game growing, in terms of popularity, in terms of sponsorship, in terms of fan following growing for the game, for the women's basketball game?
The growth of the women's game has been exponential. It really has. I can adhere to what Coach Summit said, because I was around and coaching boys at the time, and girls basketball was an afterthought. It was. When I first had the opportunity, and my athletic director came in and asked, my school closed. So you've got my story. I won in 1988. I won a national championship with boys. Had a number 13 pick in the NBA. And then a young man by the name of Malik Sealy played at St. John's. We tragically lost him a couple of years later, but just my school closed, financial, and I wound up at another high school. And they asked me, I was teaching there, and they asked, would I coach girls? And my first answer was, I don't coach girls. I coached girls 1 year in college, and my athletic director said, do me a favor for a year. And the girls were phenomenal. They pushed and pushed, and I finally said yes. And it's grown so much. You speak of sponsorships. It's a long way from even when NBA players are signing for, $33 million and a women's pro player is signing for $89,000. There's a big disparity payment wise, but the game and the popularity has grown, and we're not stealing jerseys, though once in a while I do steal a few of the guys' jerseys, and I'm very lucky. I've got a great situation. My boys coach and I get along really well. We split everything. It's divided. The gym time is divided. We make sure that the boys and the girls, some days he's early, some days I'm early. Nobody gets the short end of the stick, and we try to keep everybody treated fairly. Is it? As best we can. There's still some parameters that have not been broken down yet, but recruiting wise, I think we're both pretty much involved in the college recruitment of our players, and I've sent over 200 girls on to play Division I college ball. And so is he. So it's a great opportunity for us to kind of share that. And on a given day, there'll be 30 men's coaches in to watch a practice, and there'll be 30 women's coaches in the next day. So you've got to try to keep up. And I think what the boys have done is raise the bar, and the girls now have to keep that going. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that.
Thank you.
So, Coach, I was going through all your interviews recently, and one thing really stuck to me. So I'm going to quote you here. And so you said that the question which was asked, and you answered when it was asked, "What is your real job?" was the question which was directed to you, and you replied saying, "It cries the king. I'm the bottle washer. I clean the floor. I teach chemistry. I'm the athletic director. I also direct a research program for science research, which is always fun." So the reason why I'm quoting you, I'm sure you know, and I would just like you to elaborate on how important is it for a coach to build that rapport, especially with the younger kids, and does it even help in the performance?
Well, I believe it's very important to set a good example for your players. And there's very, very few players, Sue Bird, Tina Charles, Shamiqua Holtzclaw, who are going to be at that high level. They're not always going to play basketball. Basketball is going to end. Most children, when you're coaching them at 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, their dreams are they're going to be playing for the national team. They're going to go play pro. They don't see anything else beyond that. My job is to teach. Well, I teach basketball, but I also teach science. I also teach life. There's more to it. High emphasis on the academics because you need something to fall back on. Your transcript, your history in education is going to be really important when you get out there in the job market. How you handle athletics, I think athletics is going to build tremendous self-esteem. It builds confidence, and it will hopefully develop some very, very good life skills for you in the future, whether you're applying for a job or you're running a company or you're managing a group or you're working with other people. The big thing for a lot of people, students or athletes, is, can you play well with others? Whether you're the top player or the last player on the team, can you play with other kids? Can you handle working with other people? And athletics teaches that. And that's one of the keys to success in most businesses. Can you work with others of a variety of backgrounds, of a variety of different skin color, religious backgrounds, shapes, sizes, and can you work with people? And that's the best part about athletics, because I've traveled all over this country and I've traveled abroad. Um, Basketball is universal. It teaches so many great skills for so many people. And regardless of your religious belief, regardless of your skin color, it's a ball going in a hoop. The same thing applies when you're in the business world. The same thing applies now in the medical world, hopefully. And we've got to figure it out, but I think it teaches some great skills. Dr. Anthony Fauci, who's one of our premier epidemiologists and has been, I guess, on most of our TVs and maybe on maybe some of the broadcasts you may have seen from BBC. Dr. Fauci was a point guard at a high school in our league.
Wow.
He's a basketball player. He runs 6 miles a day. He's 78 years old. He's a former point guard. He's an avid baseball fan. Sports teaches a lot of things, and you can do both. Hope that helps. I don't know.
All right. Basketball is popular across the United States. You have players who are, there are programs and across the United States in terms of training, in terms of skill development, in terms of prep schools. A lot of times, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times we are under this perception in developing countries like India that infrastructure or world-class infrastructure is key to developing talent. And however, not to my surprise, I've seen some of the smallest gyms in the US when I was there for trips, nurturing the best talent in comparison to the most fancy facilities in some of the prep schools. Could you elaborate a little bit about that in terms of telling us as coaches that what do you really require to develop talent, and a little on this kind of a misconception, I would, if I'm allowed to say so, in terms of saying that we require the right infrastructure to develop talent, whereas my perception is you need a hoop and you need a floor to bounce the ball.
As long as you've got I love old gyms. As long as you've got a floor, and sometimes it's not going to bounce really well, but we've had some great old gyms that we've played in. I think you're right in that philosophy. There's a lot of emphasis now on modern, and it's got to be state of the art, and it's got to be big and beautiful. It's really about heart and what your kids believe. If you can get a group of children to follow and be part of something, and they'll set the example. If you can get some kids to follow you and follow the examples you're setting in practice and in games and in your philosophy, those younger children behind will develop. You're not going to develop them. The older players do. They'll develop the be on time, be prepared, have your things ready, come into practice, work hard every day. That's not on the coaches. That's got to be on the players. And whether it's boys or girls, I know one of the questions popped up from a squash coach. Girls work just as hard as boys. Boys may be physically capable of going up and taking it off the rim, but girls work just as hard, and I think they listen better. They pay better attention to detail. The key for girls, especially in basketball, is keeping them in the flow and making them play not like robots, because girls will overthink it. Spread, I apologize, but you overthink everything, I'm sure. And boys just let it shake off. And if we can get the girls to move that way, I think it helps. But the facility is wherever you are. And some people are very much for it's got to be air conditioned, and it's got to be ultra modern, and it's got to be shiny and new. I love an old gym. I love a gym that's hot. give me a small old gym with a lot of people and a big crowd and 100 degrees or 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I think it's just fabulous. And I think it just kind of makes it more interesting. But you've got to believe, and your program has to believe in what you're doing. And once you get the kids to buy into it, which I think we've done, it sets the tone for all the players coming in, and they've got to follow that.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
Coach, I love the part where you said girls listen well and they listen better, and I can vouch for it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, moving forward, I just wanted to ask, and I'm sure a lot of coaches, and especially, so I direct a sports for 3 schools, and a lot of my coaches comes to me and ask me this question very often, that how do you handle a plateau in the performance of a team? I'm sure with your massive experience, there would have been times when, the progression is maybe not there, or is it slow, or is just stagnant. So how do you deal with the plateau in the performance of the teams?
You've got to be very, very patient. Patience is a key. It's it's not just the teams, it's sometimes the players. We've had players who've come through who never achieved what they should have in high school, never really achieved their success, but they go on to college, they go on to secondary, they go on post school, and they've achieved great success in whatever field they're doing. It's just a means to an ends. It's not going to be their life. Yes, it's a big part when they're growing up, and it's a great part because I think it's important. But the one thing we don't control is a lot of their family lives and what goes on at home, as many of you are probably very familiar with. It can be just heartbreaking, especially for a coach. You're trying to get a kid to come in and work hard every day, and you know what they're dealing with at home. So you've got to balance it. You've got to be cognizant of what everybody's going through. When a team starts to get complacent, sometimes it's good to shake things up, change up. We try to change up practice every couple of days. We switch things around. I don't come in and do the same thing every day. I think that's really important. Come in and change your approach. Sometimes you've got to be a little more aggressive. Yes. Sometimes you've got to take a little more of a back seat. Um, it's the same thing in the classroom. It's teaching. If you do the same thing every day, they get bored, they get complacent. So it's good to switch it up. Some days I'll sit in the back of the room and I'll put one of the students up front and have them go over the lesson that they're supposed to know. We do the same thing in practice. We'll put one of the players out there. Okay, what are we doing first today? What's next? And they'll run through. The best practice I think I ever ran was sitting on the side. They were being annoying. Let's just say that the players were being annoying. And my staff and I had really kind of had enough of their childish attitudes. So we put the balls out. Everybody was set and to go. And we pretty much told them that we weren't really happy with the way they were doing things. And maybe they just didn't really want to play. And we gave them the option to go home. We went over, we sat on the side, and they had a great practice. We didn't say a word till the end. So they can surprise us. I don't suggest sending them home because most of them really want to be there. But when they get their mind to it, it's just getting them focused. And sometimes that focus comes from some very strange places. We're very lucky. We travel quite a bit. Um, Getting young players on the road and traveling and seeing different parts of the country or parts of the state, really important. Get them from their comfort zone, get them away and traveling with other players. And that's where you really, I think, develop a lot of bonds. And those are the things they remember. They may not remember the game, but they remember the trip. They remember sights. They remember things of seeing the Pacific Ocean, or taking a ferry, or being on a bus or a plane and what happened. And they remember the stupidest things, but it's a lot of fun. And I think that's really important because it builds a lot of bonds.
Right. And it's in these little things that take you and that you take with you forever.
We overlook it as coaches. We do. We overlook little things as coaches because we're looking at, oh, we've got to get through all these details in practice, and we've got to get this, and I've got to. And if you're counting wins and losses, I feel for you, but try not to count your wins and losses, because your wins come when you see that player that, now my 39th year coaching overall, and when I see those young men and women now with kids, with families, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're in the working world, they've got 4, 5, 6 kids, and they're really enjoying life, and they've grown up so much from what they were when they were showing up in the gym every day for practice. That's the measure of success. It's not about the wins and losses.
Right.
Thank you.
And that's such a huge message. And I'm sure all of us having this interaction is going to take huge takeaways from whatever you all are taking.
Right. Raspreet, if I'm allowed, I'd like to welcome some players, especially women's players. Coach, we have a few players at the high school level who've gotten to America on scholarships. Some of them are even playing at Division I schools somewhere across the US. I don't know details about that, but some of the girls from Bangalore and a few other cities have gotten to America on scholarships. So I'd love to welcome them as well on this program. They are a source of inspiration for all the girls and boys across India, that you can make it to the next level if you get better at your game. So special welcome to all of them as well. You have spoken about control situations in practice. I've heard some of your recent conversations earlier about control situations in practice. We have a lot of young coaches and coaches who've been coaching for a while. Could you elaborate a little more on the control situations to make your players kind of like immune to pressure during the games? What all do you do in terms of control situations?
We try to set the bar a little bit high, and we maybe make them have to run uphill in practice, not literally. We do game situations every day. We try to do about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes every day of offense to defense to offense, back and forth. But then we'll set the clock and we'll say, okay, the first 5, the second team, whatever, you're up 10, you're down 10. We set situations. Some situations are unwinnable, unattainable. But when you get out in the game and you're down 10 with a minute left, what are you going to do if you've never been in that situation? So it's really important to do that. And don't stick with that group that's going to be your favorite or your first 5. What I've found after doing this for way too long, and it was very frustrating, by the end of most matches, by the end of most games, your best players are probably not in the game. And this goes back to what I said before. You better make sure that number 8, 9, 10, because hopefully your best players are out there at the end of a game, but sooner or later you're going to have to deal with a child or a player who's maybe not as gifted, maybe not ready. How do you get them ready? And it's a team game, so you've got to mix it up. So we'll switch teams up constantly and rotate players. We try to do where one coach will take one team, another coach will take another team, and I'll ref, and I'll just stand there and, bring it in after each set. We'll do 2-minute sets, 3-minute sets, and have them run things and change things up. I think it's really important to get them out of that robot functioning. Okay, you're the best player, you're going to run and you're going to do this, run from A to B. They've got to be able to think on their feet a little bit too. And that's really important skill in anything. They've got to be able to adjust. And we set them up where everybody's got 4 fouls. If you make one more foul, you foul out. So we try to set the table against them and see if they can handle that adversity. And it's frustrating and it takes time and it takes a lot of patience, but it does pay off. So my suggestion is situation drills every day in practice. And, you know, if you don't have the staff to do it, that's okay. You set the situation, you explain it to everybody. There's 30 seconds left. There's 5 seconds left. Here's the ball. Here's what you've got. This is what we want to run. Everybody knows it. This is what we're going to do. But that game preparation, instead of trying to sit there and draw it at the end of a game or the end of a match, where you're trying to explain what's in your head to a group of 10, 12, 14 teenagers who can't focus for more than 30 seconds anyway. And at the end of a game, they're so excited and so you lose it. Whatever you draw on that board. And my advice to any of the young coaches here or any of the older coaches, if you draw on a whiteboard or where you X and O, bring that to practice every day and X and O in practice. Don't wait till you're on the bench in a close game and now you're going to sit there and you're going to draw out what's going on. That's got to be in practice every day.
Yeah.
That is so rightly put up, Coach. And I would like to take a question from the audience here. So Mr. Anil Kumar, he had written earlier to us to ask this question. So basically, he says coaches today face an information overload. So when you go online, there's all sorts of information available. There's so many YouTube channels. There's a lot of people claiming themselves to be the best coach. So that at times becomes confusing and contradictory, right? So what do you actually suggest for at the grassroots level? Should it be done by the book, or is there anything you suggest? Is there any book which you could suggest to the young coaches, which they can, start at the basic level?
Oh, wow. Okay. Everybody is a guru now in basketball. Everybody knows everything. The problem, and I'm not sure if it's so much in India, I know it's very prevalent here. Every parent is now a basketball guru. They are all geniuses. They know more than every coach. I'm not a savant. I am not a guru. I'm, as one of you quoted before, I am the chief cook and bottle washer. I clean the floor every day before practice. I'm the one that brushes the floor down and cleans it. The past 2 years, I've been the trainer and taping ankles because we lost our trainer. Yeah, there's a lot of that going around. My advice to all young coaches, and even to those coaches who are, you've been doing this for 10, 15, even 20 years. If you're not sure of yourself, you can find somebody that you want to emulate. I was very lucky when I was growing up. I spent a lot of time at St. John's University. As a young coach, I would go out there and watch Coach Conaseca at St. John's. I would travel down to Villanova University and watch a gentleman there by the name of Raleigh Massimino. I've had the privilege of watching Coach Pat Summitt, Coach Gino Auriemma. I've gotten in to watch a lot of really good practices. Some of the things they do are incredible. Some of the things they do, I don't agree with. We have a saying in camp, and I run a lot of camps in the summer because I think fundamentals are really important to teach. Coach Bob Knight, who was a very famous American coach, would not make a good camp coach. He was a very angry man. He's still a very angry man. Very nice guy, but he's a very angry coach. He would not make a good camp coach. He's not going to teach the fundamentals. He's going to get you to come out of your shell and play above that. But for us, it's developing fundamentals and skills. the problem we all run into is there's always somebody out there who thinks they do it better. And that's great. You're not going to fight that. You're not going to win the fight of, well, this coach told me to do it this way. Okay. And that's fine. I wouldn't even try to make that argument of, well, that's wrong. No, you can't do that. Okay, that's the way I explained it. This is the way I want it done. This is the way we're going to do it. And it's kind of like our all of our governments now with the coronavirus trying to, I guess, justify their behavior or their actions. It confuses a lot of kids. It confuses a lot of people. Try not to confuse the kids. If they've been explained a different method or their mother or father explained them to do it a different way, you got to just show them the light and say, listen, you can do it both ways. It's okay. Well, this is what I want. I was never a big fan of zone defense. Never was. It was just not something that I really enjoyed. And I spent a lot of time at Syracuse University watching Coach Boeheim, and he had several of my players. It's come in real handy the last couple of years, and it's paid great dividends. So don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't lock yourself into only one style. You can grow, you can develop, and never say never. I said I would never play zone. We've won the last 2 state titles playing zone, and it works. But there's always going to be somebody who says they're smarter and says they know everything, and you can be one of them. I personally don't, and I just kind of leave that to the experts.
Thank you.
We've got another question by Dr. Amrish. Basketball has grown tremendously internationally. I think the competition against the US has probably been increasing every year, where teams like Spain or Australia or Lithuania or Serbia have been giving the US a really good competition at the international level. But what do you think USA does better than everybody else, which you don't see happening in other countries?
Ooh, I think for right now, our grassroots has been really, really good. I think our development through the primary and secondary schools has really been very solid. Our emphasis on the club teams has not been as much, though the clubs have become very prominent, I hate to say, but they're a plus. I think there's a general balance in what we've got with so many players and so many people playing basketball. But I can tell you from my chair as the athletic director and as the head coach at Christ the King, the number of girls playing basketball in the United States is definitely, I don't know if it's plateaued, but it's definitely dropped off in the last few years. And I think internationally, when you look up and down NCAA college rosters right now, you're seeing 2, 3, sometimes 4 players from overseas. Those players are dedicated, they're working hard, and I think in the American game, you've got a lot of other opportunities. There's so many other things that they do or can do, and there's a lot of distractions. So I think there's a balance there, and I think the rest of the world is definitely making strides to catch up. You mentioned Spain, you mentioned Australia. Their development programs are excellent. The Spanish program is tremendous. We've had some of their players over. We've had some of their young players over. Skill level, work ethic is second to none. And it's a matter of time. And it is. And I'm sure with all of you working really hard, and hopefully within your lifetime, you see it that, that the Indian basketball will be at that level. And I'm sure it can.
Thank you for the belief, Coach, because to believe something and to work in the direction is extremely important, and the belief, if you're showing in us, and I'm sure all the coaches are listening to us, and I've always believed a program or a sport is strong in a country as strong as the grassroots level. That's where the strength comes out from.
It's not your national team. Your national team is right now at 10 years old. That's where your national team is. That's your future. And those young players, for right now, I see that we've definitely hit a bit of a decline. Will we have great players? Yes, I think individually we will have great players here, and I'm not knocking USA basketball or knocking American basketball, but I've seen a numbers decline in young ladies coming out for teams, and I'm talking to coaches and talking to development with USA basketball, talking to Nike. Um, we've all seen a drop off in the American pursuit of playing at the collegiate level and playing at that higher level. And I see in the international game, players work extremely hard. They're very dedicated to their craft. And maybe there's less distractions, or there's less other things that are taking them away from what they want to achieve. But some of the young ladies that I've seen, and Shea Duran played in Israel. Shai played for me here, came over, played for us in high school, had a great career at the University of Maryland, and went on and didn't want to play in the WNBA. She went back to Europe and had a tremendous career playing there. The opportunities for young women playing abroad is just incredible. And whether you want to play in the Turkish league or the Spanish league or the Italian league, the opportunities are just outstanding. And for a young woman to be able to play basketball and make money, though the money isn't as good as the men, I still think it's a great opportunity. It's a great, great thing for them to experience.
It indeed is. And I'm just taking back to the grassroots, the school level again. One of the coaches, Brahmaditya Panwar, has asked this question that, do you have any pre-match ritual with your teams? And how do you overcome, and how do you ensure the team is not overwhelmed before the games?
Well, this year we were overwhelmed. We lost our best player, who's going to Notre Dame, who was supposed to play for Coach Muffet McGraw, till Muffet decided it was time to retire. Smart lady. We went through a similar season as Notre Dame did. We lost our best player. She's 6'5". She was going to be a McDonald's All-American. She will be a great player at Notre Dame. She hurt her knee right before the beginning of the season. My second best player, my other big player, pulled a hamstring in December and missed December, January into February. She's 6'3". And we lost a guard to eligibility. Things happen. So you've got to deal with what you got. On paper, it was not a successful year, but when you talk individually with players, we had some kids who never would have had the opportunity they had this year. So you can't just put your hands up and say, well, I'm done. You got to deal. As for the grassroots, the development at the lower level is really important, in keeping those kids positive, keeping them involved. You want them to come back. You want them to feel good about themselves. And that's in any sport, whether it's cricket, whether it's squash. They've got to feel good about what they're doing. And you want them to continue to play. So you want to set good examples for them. We bring back a lot of players. Sue Bird's been back. Tina Charles has been back. Every year we have college players come back and sit down with the team and tell them what it's like to play Division I college basketball, or what they did when they played college basketball and now they're a lawyer, a banker, a mother, a doctor. Have them come back and see. We bring back a lot of alumni. And I also bring in people in different fields just to kind of give the young players a chance. Val Ackerman, who's the head of the Big East, was the president of the WNBA. Val's been in to speak. And I try to make sure that I vary it up, so they get a variety of different people each year to see and talk to. And I think it's important for young women especially to see role models, to see women who've made it and achieved, and because I don't think they have a clear picture of what that path's going to be. And it's very hard, especially as a, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, to see what it's going to be, when you hit 30 or 40, and now, oh my God, life's over. In their mind, you're 30, you're a fossil. So that makes me like, extraterrestrial, I'm dead. But I think it's important that they see that and they get a picture of what's out there, and regardless of what sport you coach, or just vary it up. I had a trick that I did for a long time with the players. I did it with the boys, and it worked for the girls for a little while, but the girls figured it out. They're a little smarter. I had a friend who was a Wall Street broker, and I would have him come in and bring a friend, or we were all going somewhere. We'd go out to dinner, and I'd say, come on in and just sit in the stands. Don't say anything to me. Just come in and watch practice on a Friday or a Saturday. Just come in and just sit there and watch. And I could convince the boys, especially the girls would catch on. It's a college coach. Oh, well, I don't know what school that's, but it's amazing when people are watching how the level of play and the level of intensity and the level of attention steps up. It helps. You try everything.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, Coach.
We've got a question from Dr. Birendra Jhanjaria, who's the director of physical education at one of India's top physical education institute, LNIP Gwalior. Selections and tryouts is something we are currently still working on in India, and trying to probably streamline that as a system in terms of how should selection happen, what should tryouts be like, how should the players be evaluated. Could you elaborate about a summer tryout at your school? I know there are plenty of kids. Out of maybe 200 kids, you guys have to decide on 6 kids to play for the team. Could you elaborate about the tryouts, and what are certain criteria when you guys are going through a selection process?
No problem. I've had the privilege of being at college tryouts and watching those, and I've watched some of the NBA teams when they're doing their preseason, so I've used a lot of their stuff. My suggestion to all coaches who are running tryouts: evaluate players, try to get a clear rubric of what you're doing and document what you're doing. I've had a few players who did not make the cut, and a few parents who've gone over my head to administrators about why their child, their superstar, I was holding them back. I was taking away their NBA or WNBA opportunities. Document what you're doing, but don't ever share that documentation except with your coaches. That never goes to the players. So we have an evaluation system that we try to put in for both basketball and for volleyball, on the girl side, to make sure that if a player doesn't make it, we can actually show why they did not make it. But that's only for a senior administrator. That would not be. And I've had parents, when the parent comes in, the one thing I will suggest to everybody, once they come in and they want to hear, be honest. It sometimes isn't a very good thing, but you've got to be honest. Once they want to come in, we will not discuss playing time. I won't talk about minutes. It's just not, who plays is earned in practice. And if they don't get to play, I feel bad. Yes, I do. But they didn't earn that in practice, and they can continue working. And I'm a big fan of favoring my older upperclassmen, my seniors. If you're a senior, you're going to get more than the opportunity you deserve. And I will live and die by the seniors until they prove they can't do it. But in the evaluation, make sure you've got an idea of what it is you want, what it is you're looking for. Can they dribble with both hands? We had one young lady who was about 6'4", but she was probably about 280 pounds. She had to make it up and down the court in 11 seconds. Well, I can tell you that in her freshman year, it took close to 20 seconds. By her senior year, she was down to about 14, maybe 13 if she was lucky. But we built it where she had to improve every year. Sometimes you'll take a player just because of a hunch, and sometimes it works. And sometimes you know that it's going to help them grow and develop. They may not play, but they will get better. But the evaluation process is important because right now, I'm sure, as in every other country, it's the parents have become much more involved, and you're going to have to back up your choices. So senior administrators may be able to help you. If you have an athletic director and you're a young coach coming in, make sure you talk to your athletic director and say, well, right now it looks like about 30 kids coming in for 15 spots. Here's what I'm planning to do. This is what I'm looking at, so that they're on the same page, because you don't want to get called in after, and we usually do about 3 days of tryouts or 3 days of workouts before we make any cuts. You don't want to get called in on that following Tuesday after the parents complained and be told, well, that's not good enough. Have that we meet before as a staff. We meet with our administration prior to the season, and we try to lay out what we see we've got going on and how it's working, so that everybody's on the same page, because you don't want surprises, and communication is really key. I would caution a lot of coaches, be limited in your social communication, because if you socially, I found this out the hard way. I posted something about one player, and I had 3 others who were ready to absolutely mutiny because I posted about one, and I had to call them in and explain to them, okay, she's having a really hard time. Her confidence is gone. And she finally played one really good quarter. You 3 have played 3 great games. What's wrong with you? Well, it just sounded like you weren't. I was like, okay, whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody's got to breathe. This is done for a reason. I'm trying to build up her confidence. You guys are okay. But sometimes you're going to have to discuss that. Had a situation several years ago where a player got injured, and somehow it got back to the player that I didn't believe that they were injured. Now, that created a problem with her parents, and it snowballed into something bigger. We had to sit down and clear that up. No, I didn't. I believed the injury was real. I didn't think she was working hard enough to recover. And we had to clear that up because it got ugly. You've got to communicate carefully and concisely, because that will cause problems for everybody. And it will keep you up at night because you will not believe how bad it can get. Some of you have probably already gone through this. Careful communication and be concise, be on point.
Right, Coach. I think that's very important. The communication has to be from both the sides, but definitely parents are same. I think worldwide there is no difference in the mindset of the parents, whether it's USA or India or Spain or anywhere. But whatever you've just suggested of being honest and maintaining a data, I think that can really help any of the coach to just communicate well with the parents.
Yeah, the communication is key. And we try to back up the statistics that we have with, we'll videotape. I've gone to videotaping practices. I have not done videotaping tryouts yet, but that's been done by several of my colleagues. And if the parent really gets to be that bad with your administration, you can edit the video and absolutely show them. I've had to sit down with a parent and go, okay, here was practice. Here's what your daughter did. And this is why she has not gotten into the game. And the video doesn't lie.
Right.
And your statistics, but you will be accused of horrific things as a coach. and you better be a little bit thick-skinned. Don't overreact. Don't jump on it. Just know where it's coming from. I've had a number of parents, and I'm very lucky. We've got 19 sports teams. I'll let the coaches handle most of the initial problems. When it gets to be maybe a little bit too much, or they think it's going to be heated, make sure you've got another administrator or another senior, somebody else with you. Don't meet with parents by yourself, because you could be accused. I also try not to meet with players one-on-one. Either I've got an assistant there or I've got a captain. Caution yourself, cover yourself, because the last thing you want to be accused of is something that's not true. Be really cautious with that. Like I said, the last 2 years I've done a lot of the taping and injury stuff. I always try to make sure it's 2 girls in the training room. I don't like to have just one person in there by themselves. It's a big window that can see out of the gym, but I don't like to have just one girl in there unless it's, my captain. The captains, I try to keep and use them as much as I can. They communicate with the team. I don't do a direct line communication with my team. I don't want to be in their group chat. I don't want to be on their social media. I communicate with one player and let them communicate with the team. I give them a leadership role, and I think that leadership's really important.
Yeah, Raspreet,
Right.
sorry to interrupt. I think we've got 7 minutes more.
Okay.
Yes. So, just on a lighter note, Coach, I know that you've also coached your daughter Kerry at Christ the King. So, how was that experience, and how did you balance between being a dad and being a coach? And the reason why I'm asking you this, Coach, is because even in the school which I direct, there are so many aspirant coaches who are also parents, who are young parents, and they really push their kids to limits, right? And I'm sure there are lots in the audience as well. So how did you balance between the two?
Oh, very, very carefully, very carefully. Coaching my daughter was a thrill. It was a lot of fun. I coached her in 2 sports. She played volleyball. She played basketball.
Right.
I was definitely hard on her. There's no doubt about that. She was held to a higher standard. But when the game was over or the practice was over, it was over. I live 50 miles away from the school. So we traveled every day for an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes more in New York traffic to get home. When practice ended, it ended. When the game was over, the game ended. If she wanted to discuss it, then it was discussed. If she didn't, then we didn't. Really, you've got to be very smart as a parent. It's very hard to change that role. But when you've got to be able to let them vent, let them speak. When they want to talk, they will. When they don't, best advice I can give you as a parent, shut up. They'll know. They know what you're thinking. They know, especially if they've played for you, they will know. There were some disappointing rides home. There were some great rides home. But we would never discuss the game or the practice if it went bad without her bringing it up. And that was one of the keys. And be fair. I was never beyond I never pushed my daughter beyond that. I think, fairly smart about that. She was an outstanding volleyball player. She gave up basketball eventually and went on and just played college volleyball. And I got a great comment from her college coach at an awards dinner her senior year. She got player of the year for the school and all that. And her coach was sitting next to me as she was getting the award. And she goes, 4 years, I never heard from you. I thought I'd be like hearing from you. You're a big time coach. You've got this reputation. And I didn't hear from you for 4 years. And she took my daughter and moved her to a new position, changed her game a bit. I wasn't thrilled, but she did it. And you know what? Nope. don't get involved. She made that bed, you lie in it. You're going to play for a lot of different people. You're going to work for a lot of different bosses. Sometimes you're going to have to let it go. But the worst thing you can do is pick up the phone and complain. That's your child's problem. Let your child work it, and they can do that. They're capable. They really are. You got to have a lot of faith in your child, and hopefully they grow from it.
Right. Thank you.
Last question, Coach, before we're going to hand it over to Manu from HCL Foundation. You're coaching high school ball. Players going to go and play multiple positions. They could be shifted from the point guard to a shooting guard, etc. How do you balance position-specific training? Europe seems to have had a cutting-edge advantage over America in the last few years, where a lot of big guys can play multiple positions and can pass the ball very efficiently. How are you bridging that gap at the high school level and preparing your players in terms of multiple positions?
We try not to pigeonhole anybody into one position. Now, that being said, my 6'5" girl who's going to Notre Dame, Natalia Marshall, she does ball handling drills just like everybody else. I try not to, well, no, you're not going to do it. Everybody's involved in all aspects, because everybody's going to have to play the game. So don't pigeonhole it. When you find somebody that can play the point guard, and you've got somebody who's got the moxie and got the ability and can think on their feet and make and do and keep everybody in line, they're like gold, and they are gold. Treat them really well. Don't treat them badly. Treat them well, because they will grow up and they will win you a lot of games. Very hard to find. Skills at the point, somebody to run the team, somebody who can keep the team together and run it, like a quarterback in football, like a goalie in soccer and football. It's very important to have that key position, somebody who can run the team and keep it together. We've been very blessed, but it's just, I try to make sure everybody does a little bit of everything. I try not to keep everybody pigeonholed into one position. I also try not to stick every big player with their back to the basket. They do shooting drills with everybody. They work on different things, because nobody wants to be told, well, you're going to be the center. Oh no, I want to be the point guard. That's where Europe did change the thinking, because I would say 20 years ago it was, well, you were going to be what you're told you're going to be, and this is your position. The game has changed. The game has evolved. So the point forward is definitely there. I'm not a big fan. I like to have a point guard who can run the show, but we try to move it around and keep everybody in a lot of different positions.
Thank you. Last question, Raspreet, please allow me for this one. This is from one of the top players from the Indian national team, Shireen. She wants to know, how are you preparing your players offensively and defensively in terms of skill development? Just if you could just share a little bit, and if you could share some workouts with us later, we'd love to share that with plenty of coaches across the country.
I will definitely send you, I've got a bunch of things on DVD. I'm going to send you one. You can make copies and send it out. Right now, I'm not able to get it all uploaded onto the web. Most of my stuff is in school, and right now school is just locked up tight. Skill development comes from, my belief is that you've got to improve athletically. Player development is the key to your success as a coach, and it's the key for a lot of young players to grow. Athletically, I think a lot of them need to work on their running, their jumping, their landing, their pivoting. They've got to work on getting stronger. Once you've got that down, then your skill development can accelerate. So the key is, can they handle their own body weight? Can they sit and do a push-up? Can they plank? If they can't, then you're expecting them to shoot a 19, 20-foot jump shot. There's a problem. So you've got to work on your conditioning and your body work, and doesn't need to be fancy with all kinds of bells and whistles. Simple things. Can you hold your body weight? We do a lot of running on the beach. I find soft sand is a wonderful thing to really keep everybody in shape and work it. I think it's important that their conditioning is paramount to anything, because you can overcome a lot of shortcomings skill-wise when you've got that ability and you've got the ability to keep going all game long. But the key is get out and skill development every day and work on it. It really changes everything, and that's what we do in the off season, or we did in the off season up until March 13th, and the whole world kind of decided it was going to go upside down. And right now it's just making sure everybody's getting their schoolwork done and making sure everybody's safe. And it's been tough. I'm not sure how you guys have been affected, but for here, we lost a couple of coaches. We've lost an athletic director who was a very dear friend at 43. I've lost 2 former boys players. This has been very serious, and it's tragic, and it's going to change a lot of things. So hopefully everybody's safe and everybody takes care of them and their families, and hopefully everybody can make it through this.
Right. Heartfelt condolences, sir. I would like to hand over to Mr. Manu Khanna from HCL Foundation. He's going to introduce a little bit about the organization and what they do for sports for development.
Thank you so much, Pradyut. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, Manu. Yes, Manu.
Yes.
Thank you, Bob, for your time, for your valuable inputs. I think so. It has been a great session. A lot of learning for all the young budding coaches here today in India. And your learning has been truly, your experience that you've shared will definitely enhance the coaching here in India. And we look forward to a lot of improved coaching now. And we'll keep on doing all these, wonderful knowledge sharing sessions. Thank you, Pradyut. Thank you, Raspreet, for giving us the time. I'll briefly, in a couple of minutes, talk about HCL Foundation's Sports for Change initiative. We at HCL Foundation, have a sports program that we are running with the underprivileged children here in India, where our focus is to give them the experience of sports. We see that the kids in the slum do not experience sport like some of us who have been privileged and have experienced sports in our childhood. And hence, we have consciously taken a decision to give them the experience of sport. Out of that, we give them the right to play. We are continuously, keeping a very close eye on the talent as well, because we feel that at HCL Foundation that talent is an outcome of a very strong grassroots program. And hence we keep a very close eye on the talented students, and we also are promoting them to be local role models in those communities that we work with. We also are linking them with the larger outcomes of the development, like leadership, life skills, friendship, a lot of other attributes that sports build among the child. So that's what we have been doing at HCL Foundation. We are currently working in 11 states. We have the privilege of around 4,500 students actively participating in our programs in 7 different sports. So, and some of the things that we've been able to achieve is that around 39 students out of the 4,500 have gone on and played at a state level. 19 have gone on and played at national level, and around 30 odd students have also got admission in higher colleges through the sports scholarship. So that has been, some of the achievement we have been able to do in a very short span of around a couple of years' time. I would also like to thank the HCL Foundation Academy team for putting us all in place, giving us the platform so that all of us can be together, share our ideas. We also like to thank all the participants, Dr. Amrish, who has been here with us, all the participants who have participated, have gained so much from the session. Thank you so much. Over to you, Pradyut.
Thank you so much, sir, for finding time at such a short notice. It's an honor and a privilege to have you. We would love to see you in India sometime soon. post-COVID. And we would love to have you visit all our projects with HCL Foundation, where we're working in areas where children almost had no access to any sports. And now through HCL Foundation Sports for Change program, we are developing basketball courts and organizing tournaments and giving them some form of nutrition to engage them and channelize their energies in the right direction. So we hope you visit us and inspire many more in India in the coming future.
Thank you, Pradyut and Jaspreet.